Well, well, well. It has seemingly taken 2 whole years, but we are finally going to be seeing a Warhammer 40k live-action series. Which, to be truthful, I am a bit surprised by, but I'm also not going to stare a gift horse in the mouth. We're going to be talking a lot about this particular revelation, about what they could be going over, possibilities story-wise, just general surprise about the fact that this is actually happening, so on and so forth. Yeah, needless to say, it's a big deal. Plus, if we have the time for it, we are also going to be discussing the, well, Niji Sanji not being able to beat the allegations, plus the problem of race swapping, and how it, is getting ridiculous. Again. Well, it was already ridiculous. Anyway, welcome to On the Grind. Okay. So before we get into the Warhammer stuff, let me, of course, as I'm trying to make a weekly tradition, introduce you guys to who has joined me this week. We have social media manager Serena.
Hello.
And my editor-in-chief, Mike.
Hello.
And we're going to start this off with a pretty brief little section, because I didn't get to play a ton of this, sadly. But what came out this week was the remaster of Soul Reaver 1 and 2. Now, for old fogies like me, this is a big deal, because the Legacy of Kain games on PC have not had good ports at all. They'll run fairly well, but the problem is that there's no controller support on any of them. Well, that's not completely true. Legacy of Kain Defiance has a level of controller support, but you cannot map any controller that has triggers on it, because for some reason it just doesn't recognize them. So that sucks.
Oh, you know what?
I
was gonna say. All right, keep going. I'll look into it.
Okay, so now I think there's a mod for Defiance that changes that. Which, if that's the case, I might look it up, because Defiance is probably the best game in the series. But regardless, Soul Reaver getting a remaster, specifically for the current audience, for people who haven't played this series yet, and for old fogies like me who kind of grew up with it, this is a big deal. Because there is admittedly a demand, at least on PC, for remasters like this, just to get good ports of them. And I have to say, they really knocked it out of the park, so far at least of what I've played of it, with Soul Reaver. So I won't go super in-depth into the plot details or anything like that, because I want to save that for like a full review. But because I admittedly have not played the original Soul Reaver since it came out. And even then I only played a little bit of it at a friend's house. My first introduction to the Legacy of Kain franchise, oddly enough, was Soul Reaver 2. And that game is tremendous. But, and then of course Defiance came after that, which was great. Blood Omen 2 is, in a weird way, it is, Blood Omen 2, it kind of feels like, it feels like Slavjank in such a weird way. That's the best way I can describe it. It kind of feels like Slavjank. Like, it's like you know what they're going for, but something's missing here. That's just the feeling I get with anything Slavjank. So, but it's not Slavjank. It was actually made by a AAA studio. But
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, played through Blood Omen 2, played through Defiance, and yeah, none of them have good ports. Like if you're gonna play Defiance or the Blood Omen games, up to a point, it was you kind of wanted to just emulate them, honestly. Which I'm not encouraging piracy or anything. I'm just saying like that was the best way to play them aside from owning original hardware. And then they finally got the original Blood Omen on GOG.com, and that actually had really good controller support. It still runs in a 4:3 ratio and everything like that, and the UI is still the same as it always was, but the controller support is spot on. So that's really nice. So that was a step forward in the right direction, and then this comes out. Basically, how I would describe um, the Soul Reaver remaster is I would describe it as they tried to do everything they can to take some of the quality of life improvements from Soul Reaver 2, put it into Soul Reaver 1, and then basically just take the visuals and tidy them up. So by doing this, it kind of feels like a midpoint between a remaster and a remake, where all the textures have been updated, all the character models have been updated. There's actual lip flaps going on in the cutscenes in Soul Reaver 1, which of course it was PlayStation 1, so they didn't have that at the time. They have cleaned up the whatchamacallit. They cleaned up the graphics quite a bit and cleaned up the audio on the voiceover. It like when it comes to audio design, this might be the best I've ever heard in a remaster outside of the Final Fantasy remasters that have come out. Because those are really good. Like the Final Fantasy X remaster specifically is excellent. But God, I should replay Final Fantasy X at some point in the near future. But anyway, different topic. But the audio design in this is tremendous. And the other cool thing about it is that they also cleaned up and the original cutscenes from Soul Reaver 1 and 2, like, the big introductory ones, and clean them up, clean the audio up, clean the visuals up, and not only that, it's looking like they re-rendered them in 60 frames a second, and it is so smooth. It's still like the animation in the cutscenes is still of that time period, but everything else about it still looks so clean, and it's just so well done. Just a couple hours in, this is one of the best remasters I think I've seen in a while, which says something because there's some really good ones out there. So one thing I would tell people that is for any of our listeners who have played Soul Reaver before, you're gonna want to get this. Just like right out of the gate, I would recommend it to other fans of Soul Reaver and of Legacy of Kain. Like if you're already familiar with Legacy of Kain, pick it up. For those of you who have never played a Legacy of Kain game, one thing I will tell you is this. The Soul Reaver games and the first Blood Omen, they feel a lot like The Legend of Zelda, but M-rated and with vampires. You go to temples, the temples have bosses, the maps are sprawling with several different paths to go through, but it's not so sprawling you could really consider it an open world. Stuff like that. In a lot of ways, Soul Reaver 1 was sort of the PlayStation answer to Ocarina of Time. And it's a hell of an answer because they're both excellent video games for different reasons. I would say that Ocarina plays better, but the plot in Soul Reaver is incredible. And again, it has the best voice acting in video games, bar none. And I say that as a Metal Gear Solid fan. And Metal Gear Solid is probably the second best voice acting in video games. Legacy of Kain is the best. Because you have Michael Bell voicing Raziel, and you have a guy who might be my favorite voice actor ever, and Simon Templeman, voicing Kane. And for those of you who don't know that name, he is the voice of Doctor Doom in the 90s Fantastic Four cartoon. And he's done other roles as well that I'm probably forgetting, but veteran voice actor, which when you hear his voice, you'll know who he is. Um, in a lot of ways, he's kind of like the Tim Burton of voice acting, if that makes any sense. Like he's like the perfect guy for
Spooky
like
guy.
yeah, spooky guy, evil characters, so on and so forth. Though, funnily enough, he's in Mass Effect as one of the admirals of the Quarians. Um, and it's a more chill role for him. What I really want for him, because we're going to talk about 40K here in a second, what I would love at some point, I would like to see Space Marine 2 get an expansion pack. Save more Titus stuff, I think, for Space Marine 3. Give us an expansion pack with the Blood Angels, and have Simon Templeman voice Mephiston. Or Mephiston, however you pronounce it. He'd be perfect for it. Because, I mean, vampire. But anyway, so if you're a Soul Reaver fan already, you need to pick this up. It is a great remaster. If you have not dipped your toes into Legacy of Kain, it's a pretty decent jumping off point. The big problem with this franchise is that if you want to try to get in at the start with Blood Omen is very slow paced and is a very long video game. So if you're in the mood for that, it's not a bad jumping on point. Honestly, Soul Reaver is something if you want a little bit quicker, but you still want a kind of Zelda style experience. So either way, so far first impressions are that it's a great remaster. Though I'm gonna try to finish it over the next few weeks, little bit by little bit, to give a much better idea of like exactly how good the remaster is as a whole. So that's my first impressions of it.
As an aside for the controller thing, I'm pretty certain the issue is that they that was what, Windows 7, Windows XP that it was released on.
It would have. This came out in 04.
04?
So
Okay.
it would have been XP.
Okay, because there were very few controllers at the time that had the shoulder buttons, which is weird for the PC. Because you couldn't even connect your Duke to the PC at one point. You had to use something called Joy-to-Key.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And well, you had to. There was a bunch of like other like doohickeys, but like natively, Windows didn't recognize those types of controllers, unfortunately.
Yeah, like plug and play with a lot of controllers didn't really become a thing until much later. So,
I want to
so
say
that's a big part of it.
Least is expansion pack 2 for the XP.
Mm-hmm.
And then Win 7 is where they're like, you know what? Let's just make this simple for everyone.
Yeah, just make it so that you can plug your 360 controller right into your PC. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. First topic of the week. This is a big one, and I'm quite proud of the screenshot of the video version of the podcast.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I took that one during the campaign of Space Marine 2. Actually, a quick aside. Have either of you seen the secret level short that's 40K?
I keep getting told to watch it, and I'm waiting.
No.
Oh, you both need to. It is tremendous. It is one of the guys who is behind it is the same guy who did the Astartes fan film.
Okay, yeah, I'm fucking watching it. All right, that's fine.
It's great. The basic premise is that it's Captain Titus. He's back. You get to meet the guy who recruited him. And the guy who recruited him is currently a Blade Guard sergeant for the first company of the Ultramarines. And instead of using a shield and sword like a lot of Blade Guard does, he uses a shield and an axe. He's very good with it. So it is basically they're going after Slanesh, a Slaneshi cult and demon in it. So it's got some mind fuckery, which is pretty great. Um, and not Slanesh, sorry, Zinchian, not Slaneshi. Um, it's
As an aside,
admitted it's admittedly not fucked up enough to be Slanesh.
I hope that we get a Space Marine sequel where they have to take out a Slaneshi cult.
I am
Not not
praying for it.
not for the like the half titty things, just just to show they have balls. All right, because I feel so bad for Slaneshi fans because every fucking Warhammer game I can think of, the bad guys are either Khorne, Slanesh, or Nurg. I mean, should they Khorne, Zench, or Nurgle, and that's it. Everyone's scared of the half titty monsters.
I think you're right because like going back to Dawn of War 1 and 2, it was Black Legion, right?
That's Black Legion, yep.
And
And then
then
Dawn of War
um
3, it was a Zenchian plot.
yeah, I never played Dawn of War 3, but I heard about it.
How
Um
prop that uh, a Slanesh cult without going full eyes wide shut meets what other movie like that's fucked up set scenes.
The Event
Uh,
Horizon,
no, well that and Hellraiser.
yeah, hell
Hellraiser.
yeah, well that's the appeal though. Like that sounds you just like Serena, you just basically just pitched something completely and totally awesome. That sounds fucking cool. Because that
'Cause
that
then
that to me,
you get to kill the perpetrators.
yeah, like imagine if Pinhead, but he turns the corner and then there's Titus. Pinhead's about to have a bad fucking day.
No matter how much he thinks he's the Lord of Hell, no. He's getting sent back there in pieces.
Oh yeah, and that's just Titus. Like imagine he turns the corner and he sees Mephiston. That's a very bad day because Mephiston doesn't need to bring out his sword to kill you.
It's very easy to like do like a Slaneshi cult. Just watch Hellraiser and Event Horizon.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
because like
Yeah, because
it's
like
excessive pain.
yeah, because Dark Tide. Yeah, because I'm trying to think. Like
Darktide was a Nurgle infestation.
yep,
Warhammer Vermintide was rats and occasionally Nurgle.
yeah.
Right.
I'm trying to think
Shit.
of, and then
Inquisitor.
Space Marine 1. It's
Khorne invasion.
corn. Yeah, it's cornate. It's a or not. Is yeah, it's a World Eaters warband in that
Yeah.
one.
That wanders in, brings in a bunch of bloodletters.
Yep. And then in Space Marine 2, it's Zinch. Though very well represented in Space Marine 2. It's very well done. The Space Marines, the Rubric Marines fight like Rubric Marines. They're stiff. They stay at range. They are very challenging to fight. I really like fighting them. I'm one of the few that really likes the chaos levels in that game.
The good old Dusties.
Yeah. Um, and their sorcerers talk a ton of shit, which is great. It makes killing them really satisfying. And they recently just added, with the most recent update, Enlightened Zangors as well to fight.
Oh God, fucking Beastmen.
Yeah, they actually didn't use the blue and purple horrors. They just used Zangors.
For everyone else, Zangor is it looks like a human but with animal legs and
Yep. And a bird face.
bird face.
Yeah,
Satyrs, basically.
they're creepy little bastards.
Fucking
But yeah, it's if you want to fight blue and purple horrors, you got to go to Bolt Gun, which that's Black Legion too, along with Zinchi and Nurglite enemies. You actually Malum Kaido, Jesus fucking Christ, Malum Kaido of the Ultramarines. He's another Stern Guard veteran sergeant, I think. No, just a Stern Guard veteran. If he was a sergeant, he would have a red helmet with a white stripe. Stern Guard veteran in one video game kills 2 Lords of Change and a Great Unclean One. And then a sorcerer. In Terminator armor.
I mean,
yeah, that's... There's the power of being a named Space Marine, and then there's that. Like, there's actually jokes and memes online of Captain Titus, well, now Lieutenant Titus, actually holding Kaido on a leash saying, to stop your heresy or I'll unleash Kaido, because he's such a monster. But anyway, yeah, I'm in complete agreement. I really want to see Slaanesh. What I want out of the next Space Marine game is I want the bad guys to be the Drukhari and the Emperor's Children. Because I want to see some like Hellraiser shit. I want them to go hardcore with it. It's already an M-rated game. You might as well make it fucking creepy as hell. I think that part of the reason that they're afraid of doing Slaanesh is they're afraid of, like, people saying, like, it's transphobic or some shit, because, like, their Slaaneshi demons are very fucked up looking and very... I think that they are described in source books as being hermaphroditic. But they're meant to be. They're meant to be, confusing and very screwed up looking. Kind of like the Cenobites.
All right, I'm back.
And I think that... I don't know. I really feel like that the reason that Games Workshop doesn't do that is just they're afraid of backlash, which I think that they shouldn't be. Anybody who's an actual Warhammer fan is not going to complain about, Demons of Slaanesh and shit like that. And anybody who is a video game fan doesn't really give a shit. Because as long as they're fun to fight and fun to kill, nobody cares what they look like. Because at the end of the day, you're going to take your chainsword and you're going to turn them into meat.
Mm-hmm. Hell, just put them in fucking brass pasties like they've been doing with the models as of late. It's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone likes that.
Not to mention, like, they put them in the only game that I can think of that they're properly represented is Total War Warhammer. I think.
That is correct. That's the only game I can think of. Because they have all 4 armies there. They have that one prince, the other dude, and a bunch of Nurgle, a bunch of Zentian lords, a bunch of Khornate lords, and then they have the Archaon.
Yeah, and then do they let you play as Be'lakor in 3?
I think so.
I was about to say, I know he's in it.
Let me double check.
Because on Tabletop Simulator, I have him and Vashdor as the leaders of my Chaos Undivided army.
He leads the Shadow Legion. So yeah.
There you go. For those who don't know,
you can't play him as. You can't play as him.
Oh,
well,
okay.
You can have him as a legendary lord, but he's not. You can't play as him directly. I think I'll double check.
Okay. Let's say for those who don't know, in Warhammer, Total War Warhammer 3, which is in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, Be'lakor is actually voiced by Richard Armitage. And he does a pretty good job from what I've seen. I've never played it. I'm not a big Total War guy. I might give it a shot, because I'm also admittedly not that big of a fan of Warhammer Fantasy either.
Don't play the first one. The first one's kind of terrible. It actually mellows out everything in Warhammer 2.
Mm-hmm.
Warhammer 3 is the best.
Okay. The only faction... Oh, go ahead, Serena.
Warhammer Sorry, I was gonna say Warhammer fans just seems like fucking Tolkien but edgy.
Well, that was kind of the whole appeal of it at the time, because there weren't a lot of grimdark fantasy games at the time, and with Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and Dungeons and Dragons ADD D&D 2, they had what Warhammer Games Workshop started originally was selling like figurines for D&D games. The war games thing came after, when they found out that people were buying a bunch of them all at once so they can run the mass combat rules with the in D&D 2.0 against each other. And so they're like, well, we got to get in that action. And so they wrote up this whole grim fantasy world that was basically making fun of a bunch of things, but was their own things at the same time. And was nothing like it at the time. And it turned into this thing after like a couple iterations, where everyone starts buying more and more of these particularly unique for the time. And it seems derivative now because it's been what, 3 decades since they've released it?
Yeah, something like
4 decades? Feels like, oh my god, it's been 4 decades. Holy shit.
Yeah, because 40K is 3 decades old.
Yeah. Jesus. And there was a weird time where 40K was like just an expansion pack for the fantasy game.
Yeah, it was just basically that in space, and then as time went on, they retconned a bunch of shit from the first edition Rogue Trader days and made it its own universe, and here we are.
Ugh, fantastic. Ugh, God. But yeah, it just feels... there was nothing quite like it at the time. This grim world where using magic sucked. I mean, it was effective, but it sucked because it corrupts everything. And then you have men basically fighting and holding the line against unimaginable horror.
Yeah.
And it's just absolutely. It feels derivative now, just because it was kind of like the moment for a whole bunch of like the grim darkness.
Pretty much
of like having a fandom.
And one thing to mention is that after the original Warhammer came out, Dungeons and Dragons itself started getting darker.
Mm-hmm.
So it started to feel a little bit more derivative because everybody's like, oh well D&D is dark fantasy, and it's like, well, it wasn't always. It definitely is now, especially when you start getting into like Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, all that shit.
Dark Sun. Dark Sun was fucking grim as shit.
And then of course you start getting into the Plains, some Planescape Torment. It's a very dark story. Brilliant game, brilliant story. God bless you, Chris Avallone. But anyway, we're getting a little off topic. Back to the 40K thing.
Yeah.
So, but either way, 40K it's one of those things where like it's becoming more and more popular as time goes on. And I feel like, given that this announcement came literally at the 11th hour, like Amazon had until this month to commit to doing a 40K series. I'm honestly of the belief that the success of Space Marine 2 might have been what clinched it for them. Because it's sold, like 4 or 5 million copies so far? And it's a Warhammer 40K game selling that many copies in a month or two is absolutely butt-fucking insane.
IGN claimed 4.5 million as of October 16th, so it's probably gotten more by now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's absolutely wild to actually see it, and it's a great game. And the one thing that I have to think that that would factor into it because it's like, okay, there is clearly an audience for this. Not to mention, there's so many people, like, it has such a passionate fan base. Probably, I would argue probably one of the most welcoming fan bases that I have ever seen in regards to like any sort of like just universe. Because when you say that you're interested in Warhammer, you're going to get every Warhammer fan in a 20-mile radius is going to get excited and want to tell you about all the cool stuff that's in it. And I feel like the people who are like griping about stuff is very overstated because the like the fem stoties, for example,
God,
it's dumb,
I swear to
but
God, the discussion cycles every fucking 3 weeks.
it really does. And I will agree, it is dumb because they didn't take the time to explain it. They just said it in a tweet that, oh, it's always been the thing.
Like,
And it's
okay, I as my point, they could have salvaged it by saying, shit has gotten so bad that the noblemen are like the nobility are being asked to sacrifice their daughters as well.
yeah, that would
That's
be
all
that would be a good way to put it.
That's literally all they had to say. But if them saying this is always has had to be done, no, fuck off.
Yeah, because the whole thing with the Custodies is they are made very differently than Space Marines. So from my recollection, I don't remember anything in the lore that said that a Custodes had to be a guy.
As far as
Just
I can
that,
think of.
yeah, just that sons were sent because that was the expectation. Um, because it's a very feudal way of doing things, like a very Middle Ages sort of a feel. Because 40K is space fantasy more than science fiction, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like a fantasy, universe in a lot of ways. And just whenever there's a war, you send your sons to war. That was just always the expectation. So, but the way that Custodes are made is, if I remember it, it's more of like an alchemical process.
They have to customize it per individual, and they basically have to like use the best of the best of the best.
Yeah.
And they alter them basically more or less as young as they possibly can, like even before puberty, to they groom them into being these perfect beings, and then they alter them with a shit ton of basically magical alchemicy bullshit that's super secret. They don't even like talk about it as
Yeah.
much.
And speaking just from a writer's perspective, because of that obscurity, whereas with Space Marines it's very specific, you can you can work it into the Custodes a lot better. Though admittedly, the one thing I always say is that if you want women in power armor in 40K, they're already there. They're called the Sisters of Battle. And they're awesome. They're fucking battle nuns with tanks that are pipe organs with missiles. It's fucking cool. Like they airdrop churches on people, for fuck's sake. It's great.
Go to all auto temples. Oh my god.
They're great.
It's such a ridiculous concept.
It is. But that's the fun of 40K. It is absolutely ridiculous. But they play it straight enough that like you see it and you're like, all right, well that tracks. But anyway, so I'm thinking that Space Marine 2 has to have factored into the decision here. Because they announced it 2 months after that Space Marine 2 comes out. It's sold millions of copies. People are super hyped for one episode of Secret Level above all else. Sorry, Armored Core fans, but people were more hyped about the Warhammer 40K episode than anything. there's gonna be some very angry Armored Core fans, but it's like, I'm sorry, dude. Like that's what the people are. People are more excited about that, and the people that are talking about Secret Level right now are talking more about 40K and how ridiculous that fucking Pac-Man episode was. So, but they announced it literally the day that the Secret Level episode came out, and I have to think that that was by design. So what we're basically getting is live action 40K, which is wild to me because 40K is a massive in scope franchise.
Good lord.
Like, to put this in perspective, imagine a city where half the buildings are the size of the Sistine Chapel and they're all linked together. And that's just one level of it. So I'm talking about a hive city here. Because there's, in Space Marine 2, one of the PvE levels that you play in, the first thing that you enter is a massive cathedral. It is humongous. It honestly makes the Sistine Chapel look small. And you realize the scale of it when you consider how big you are as a character, because Primaris Marines are like 8 feet tall. And it's big to them.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. But you have to consider the Space Marines. You have to consider how big they are and how ornate their armor and things are. The same with the Adeptus Sororitas and the Ecclesiarchy. You have to consider the designs of the ships. And by the way, I'm just talking about the humans. Like, the Eldar have some pretty ornate designs as well. The Tau just rip off fucking anime, so fuck the Tau. But,
Then you got the Necrons and their weird fucking geometrical ships. Oh, it's fantastic.
oh yeah, I love the Necrons. Really interested about what they're going to be doing with them in the future. But, and then of course you have Chaos, which the one thing I love about Chaos as an antagonist is that depending on the Traitor Legion, they look completely different from one another. The Emperor's Children do not look like the World Eaters, who do not look like the Word Bearers, who do not look like the Death Guard. Nobody looks like the Death Guard. Which is kind of cool because the Death Guard are really, really, really good bad guy designs. Because they're fucking disgusting. But it is so ornate and so big.
Mm-hmm.
And incredibly gory on top of that, mind you. That just thinking about the budget for it makes my fucking head spin. Because my thought is, you're gonna, if, like, the money that you invested in Rings of Power that you're never getting back, that's the kind of money you would need to invest in Warhammer 40K to make it make sense. Because either you're going to be doing practical effects, which, I'm going to say this right now, Slaaneshi practical effects would be pretty fucking baller. Just saying. Give me an episode, like, let's say it was like an anthology series. Give me an episode of some dude stuck on a ship with the Emperor's Children chasing him. And it's directed by John Carpenter.
Oh, Jesus.
That's a fucking horror movie.
Exactly!
It would be.
And that's the one thing I love about 40K.
It's like, okay, you wouldn't have to show any of the torture. You just have to show the after effects.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fucking awful. Ugh.
Oh, yeah. Heck, you wouldn't even need to have it be like the Emperor's Children. You could just have it be one Drukhari homunculus.
Or a Night Lord. One single Night Lord. Oh my god.
Oh god. Like I talked about this when I reviewed the Carcharodon's book. Just their fucking sorcerer entering a room, his armor is covered with the skin of dead children, and he's forcing all of the telepaths to just constantly chant Ave Dominus Nox over and over again, like they're singing like a choir. Like that's like something out of fucking Event Horizon, you know? It's great.
I'm gonna admit something.
Hmm.
I never actually watched in full Event Horizon.
How dare you?
Berete
I only
utemet ex inferis.
I have no idea what you just said, but okay.
Liberate tutemet ex inferis. Anyway, yeah, you gotta watch it at least once.
Oh yeah, you gotta. That's some culture we gotta get for you. It's so good. It's so good. You will not believe who directed it. That's the better part.
I know the dude from the Matrix is in it. That's all I know.
Yeah, Lawrence Fishburne's in it, and he is the best. He is the best captain that has ever been in a sci-fi horror scenario. Like quite literally.
Okay, so it's the best way to also explain what happens when the Geller field goes down in 40K.
Yes, it really is. A lot of people thought and have had the feeling that as time has gone on that I'll just spoil who the director is. The director is Paul W.S. Anderson, the guy who did the Resident Evil movies.
What?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
wait,
shocking.
wait, what? Okay, that's
Yeah.
new.
And he did one of the best horror films ever. It's shocking. But he a lot of people thought that because he is a 40K fan. A lot of people thought that he was actually trying to make a 40K film, like a prequel. Because effectively, what happened to him has happened to several people in 40K. Oddly enough, recently happened to Kato Sicarius, and humbled the fuck out of him. Which, granted, he kind of needed it. But anyway, oh, Kato Sicarius, but anyway, the great thing about 40K is you can do whatever you want with it. You can do horror. You can do like if you've seen Hammer and Bolter, which is the animated series that they did on the Warhammer Plus. It's an anthology series, and it seems like every episode is a different genre. Like one of them is like a military thriller with the Guard. Another one is a kind of psychedelic horror, but it's with the Death Guard. What else was there? There's Trazen the Infinite gets an episode because of course he does. If he didn't get one, he would steal one. Who else got one that was really good on Hammer and Bolter? There's one about the Assassinorum, but each one is like a different genre. There's an Orc episode where they talk about who's the commissar that the Orcs love. It's not Caiaphas Cain.
I know who you're talking about. Is that old man?
Old One Eye. What's his fucking name?
God, that's gonna bug me.
Yarrick.
Yeah,
Sebastian
Commissar
Yarrick.
Yeah, there's a whole episode about the legend of Commissar Yarrick. And I think Gaz actually makes a cameo appearance in that. Give me just 1 second. Sorry, I had something caught in my throat. But that orc episode is a comedy. It's hilarious because it's the orcs. So, with 40K, you can kind of do whatever you want with it.
My favorite episode was the one with the Gene Stealer couple.
I don't remember that one.
Basically, it's this with the baby. They're trying to get off world, and at the end of the episode, it's revealed that the couple are Gene Stealers, and they have a fucking Gene Stealer abomination child.
Oh, that's dope.
Throughout the episode, you're kind of on their side because the fucking Imperium and stuff are like being assholes, and the couple just want to save their child.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a great twist ending.
Oh yeah, and Warhammer's got a lot of those. Um, and like I talked about the Carcharodons 2 weeks in a row. The Carcharodons books, like the first one is a suspense thriller. The second one is just an action story. You know, you could really do whatever the fuck you want with Warhammer, and that's the benefit. The question is, what do you guys think that Amazon is asking for? Do you think they're asking for something like an anthology series? Or do you think they're asking for one of the bigger stories like the Horus Heresy?
I'm thinking big fucking money. So I'm thinking the Horus Heresy, and they're probably asking for the product rights. What are those called? Where you sell like the little tchotchkes related to the show.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the term. Which would be
Good
interesting
lord.
because they've already got a ton of Horus Heresy tchotchkes already. I wonder maybe if they would have like a store exclusivity for them. Because you could already get minis on Amazon. Amazon's actually one of the best places to get them. But anywho, yeah, I'm thinking that that's probably what they're gonna ask for first as well. I figured it would be either that or something tied into the Indomitus Crusade, which which would be interesting. But the thing is that to do the Indomitus Crusade, you have to explain what the heresy is.
So yeah, probably. My guess is at least the heresy first.
The one thing
So
I freely admit this, I hate to say it, I was kind of more hoping that they would ask for an animated series because I have one thing that I want when it comes to the Primarchs and their casting. The Lion has to be Charles Dance.
I don't know who that is. Let me look.
He is the head of the Lannister family in
Oh
Game
fuck
of
yeah,
Thrones.
yeah. No, I'm 100% on your side with that.
Yeah. He
At
would,
least even voiced by him.
yeah. But as a live action, there is no way, because Charles Dance is in his 70s now. There's no way you're going to get him to put on that much fucking armor. That ain't happening. So, I'm curious as to who they will cast as him. And I wonder like how far back they would go because you've got the Primarchs. And how, it just asks the question of like how detailed do you want them to be? Because there's so much that like I guess you could do like little. There's ways you could do it. It's just you kind of have to do something to explain what the fuck the Great Crusade is. And I guess the big thing is like more than anything, the characters that you're gonna spend the most time with are gonna be Horus himself and the Emperor. But you're gonna need really well seasoned actors for very specific roles. The Lion is one. Conrad Kurz, I think, would need to be a really good actor to really pull that off. Because Kurz is the Primarch of the Night Lords.
Bro has to deal with the fact that he can see the future somewhat, and he's the only one that feels like any remorse from his actions.
But he's absolutely batshit insane. So
as a result, so
yeah, he does some shit that would put the Drukhari to shame. But Conrad Kurz, a lot of people compare him to the Joker, and it's not a bad comparison, though admittedly in fiction I would argue he is the best evil Batman that we've ever had. That's effectively what he is. He's evil Batman. But his whole thing is fear, using fear as a weapon. But he would need to be portrayed by somebody with a lot of depth. The one guy that I would say who could have played Vulcan died years ago, and that's Michael Clark Duncan.
I was gonna say he would have been perfect.
He really would. Could you imagine him, Michael Clark Duncan, dropping the line with a smile of, but it's also a hammer, and just clocking Kurz right in the face? He would have been perfect as Vulcan. And I don't really know anybody that could. Well, there is a dude out there that could do it, that I would be really interested to see. I forget his name. Sadly, he was in Cowboy Bebop's Netflix version.
Which one?
There's
the
only one. Yeah, the live action one.
No, I'm saying, character was he?
He played Jet Black.
Oh, that one.
He was also Cottonmouth in Luke Cage. Or even, well, actually, no, he could do it, but also the dude who played Luke Cage also could play Vulcan.
Mustafa Shakir?
Mustafa Shakir. I would actually prefer Mustafa Shakir play Vulcan because he's got a little bit more range than Mike Coulter does. But Mike Coulter would be a really good Vulcan too. Because Mike Coulter emanates the energy that Vulcan does of I'm a good dude. You know, I'm here to help. Because that's what Vulcan and the Salamanders are. They're here to help. They're always here to help, and that's what makes them so awesome. But Vulcan is going to have to be a great actor. I'm under the impression that if Henry Cavill does not play the Emperor, he's going to play Gilliman.
Oh, he'd be perfect as Gilliman.
He really would.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, like, I know who they're going to try to get to play Lehman Russ. They're going to try to get Chris Hemsworth. And I don't think he would. I don't think he's going to take that role. He'd just be doing Thor all over again.
Yeah. But I could definitely see Henry being like Gilliman than the Emperor. The Emperor would have to be like a much like older dude than Henry. Not older, but slightly older.
Yeah, Henry would be perfect as Gilliman. My dream casting for Malkador is probably not going to happen because he's way up there in age. My dream casting for Malkador is Anthony Hopkins.
God.
I mean, Anthony Hopkins can still do like Malkador doesn't require as like he's not a physically intense character. He's mainly the Emperor's advisor.
True, but Malkador is very powerful.
Yeah, I think Anthony Hopkins can pull it off, even with his age. Because Malkador is old as shit.
Yes, he is. I don't care who plays John Grammaticus. But yeah, I wouldn't want Chris Hemsworth as Lehman Russ because I don't want Chris Hemsworth to get typecast. I like him too much. I would rather have not Bill Skarsgård, who's his older brother that was in The Northman.
Alexander?
Yeah. He would be awesome as Lehman Russ. Absolutely awesome.
Lehman Russ.
Oddly enough, I could see his brother playing Conrad. Because I mean, he was Pennywise, so it would kind of make sense.
Who would be full grown?
Oh goodness.
Because it has to be a good looking actor that just oozes charisma.
Yeah,
Shit.
it's a very good question.
Good looking.
I mean, you can have Alexander Skarsgård like be Fulgrim instead of Lehman Russ.
Nah, Lehman's got to be intense, and but also have a lot of charm to him. So Alexander would fit that. I think he would fit Russ a lot better. Plus he looks like him already.
For simple as he is, I'd say Daniel Craig and Dorn.
Yeah, I could see Daniel Craig as Dorn. I really could. Just just like whoever they get to play Perturabo, um, just him going. Do you really think you're a better? You could do this better than me? And he just looks at him and goes, "Yes," and just walks off. Because that's Rogel Dorn in a nutshell. Because
Who will be Ingron?
Rogel Dorn is the Chad face meme, just made flesh. Um, who would be Angron? Oh,
Given his nature, you could be someone super
Jason
fucking.
Jason Momoa.
Really?
I could see Jason
Sure.
Momoa doing it.
Has he done a super like emotionally intense character?
Well, he was pretty good as Aquaman. Um,
Yeah,
he
Aquaman,
was
but
also.
Aquaman is like
I think of
he,
his portrayal of Conan the Barbarian when I was like that would fit really well.
I never seen him portray himself as Conan the Barbarian before. I only
His
know him as
Conan the
Aquaman.
Barbarian movie sucks, but he is good in it. Another person that I could see play Angron, he's a little small, but he's got intensity. His name is Austin Butler. He played a Fade in the most recent Dune film.
I didn't see that film.
It's so good. It's fucking fantastic. But if you couldn't get him to play Angron, Dave Batista could do it.
Honestly, I can see. I would prefer Dave Batista as Ingron.
Do what I'd say.
And if you can't get, and Austin Butler, I think would actually be a really good Fulgrim because he's also like in when he's not got all the makeup that turned him into Fade in Dune 2. He's a pretty boy, so.
You mean? Oh,
But
okay, I see it now.
I think the
Yeah, he make
ones
a
that
good.
I think the tricky ones though, like you're gonna have to get really really good actors for them, because of the roles that they play. Magnus is gonna have to be one where the actor is really seasoned. Especially the Council of Nicaea has to be that's the episode that is going to be like the one that everybody points to as holy shit because the realization at the end of it, right? He's going to have to be top notch whoever they pick to play Magnus. um and then actually I think I know who I would love to play Lorgar, though I don't think he would take the role. Christian Bale.
he might. He'd work as it because he. But like, oh,
I don't think he's gonna take the role.
I would.
True, but still.
It's one of those like wild ass speculation things.
Yeah. Whoever you get to play the Khan needs to be good with one-liners.
Because he's such a amazing asshole.
Oh yeah, he is a roast god.
Especially that line that he said to Fulgrim.
Oh my
That was
god.
You do
that's
odd
my
things.
favorite
You do odd. Okay, so you do odd things to your vehicles, Khan. I hear you do odd things to your men. Fuck.
part. Like, what Asian actor could play the Khan and do one-liners that well?
Shit.
Well, the tough part is getting somebody that has like physical presence. Because the Khan has that in spades. My mind goes to Simu Liu because he's really good. Um, yeah, getting somebody with a lot of screen presence would be the tough part. You know who I
Mind
think
you,
would
this
also
all
be a really good.
Hmm?
Here's somebody who also would be a really good Fulgrim. Riz Ahmed. He played the bad guy in the first Venom movie.
Okay.
He's kind of got
What
that
is
pretty boy vibe.
like, Riz Ahmed?
Yes.
Okay.
The only other Asian actor I can think though that has like a physical presence, that could play the Khan, but he's getting up there in age is Daniel Day Kim.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you about Riz Ahmed playing Fulgrim. I
Can't see
prefer
it.
Aston Butler.
That yeah, I can see that. But yeah, Conrad Kurz is gonna have to be like whoever plays him is gonna have to be a hell of an actor. Um, I just the two of course that I just want done well are my favorite two Primarchs, which is obviously Vulcan. I love, and I'm a big fan of Corvus Corax too. Corvus is awesome. Um, he figured out how to do stealthy space marines. Like how the fuck? I don't know how he did it, but he did it, and it was awesome.
How do you make a tank stealthy?
He
Right?
figured it out. Apparently, one thing that the Raven Guard and the Salamanders have in common, they have a lot of things in common because they're kind of the. If you were to do a ranking of loyalist Space Marine legions that are the nicest dudes, Salamanders are number one. Number two is the Raven Guard. I don't know who would be number three, but it's a little further down. Whoever you pick. Well, no, never mind. No, number three would be the Space Wolves. Space Wolves they're jolly fellas. The Space Wolves almost went to war with the Grey Knights over the fact that the Inquisition killed civilians.
They don't give a shit. They
Yeah.
would have done it.
Yeah. So what happens is the chapter master of the fucking of the Space Wolves teleports onto the deck of the Grey Knight ship that had blown up the civilian ship, and says, "Who gave the order to do this?" And the dude steps up to the chapter master and says, "I did." Chapter master cuts him in half, then kills 3 more Grey Knights like they're nothing, and then leaves. Don't fuck with the Space Wolves, man.
Smallest price to pay
Yeah.
for peace, anyway. Good lord.
Hey, I'm personally not a big fan of the Grey Knights, so I just fuck them. Kill more of them. Kill Caldor Drago while you're at it. But
I mean, they're trying.
yeah, fair point. But they're gonna the overall point, like, they're gonna have to put in Game of Thrones level casting to do this right.
Yeah, you can't have acid like that fucking Rings of Power bullshit.
Pretty much.
I mean, it was so bad it turned Bezos into a fucking Republican, I swear to God.
He did that actually happened.
But yeah, the great thing is, though, if they do the heresy, one thing I will say is there's gonna be some great moments in it that people, like, if they pull it off, people are gonna be like, "Oh my god, this is some of the best television I've ever seen," because the heresy can get very emotional. Like, the death of Ferrus Manus is gonna, especially if they get a really good actor for Ferrus Manus, because Ferrus Manus is great. That dude was a bro. He was a bro. His death is like one of the 2 events that happen at Istvan 5 that will break your fucking heart. There's that, and then when they hit Vulcan with several nukes. Though one of the badass moments will be they hit him with the first nuke, and then the dust clears and all the smoke clears, and Vulcan walks out of the radiation and the fucking dust and everything with his hammer just alight. and Perabel's like, "Oh shit, I gotta hit it with another one." Because if he didn't have more nukes to hit him with, Vulcan would have killed Perturabo right there.
The first one did work. What makes you think the second one's gonna work, bitch?
It took, like, how many did it take, Mike? It took like 4, right?
Fucking
Something
4?
like 4. It took something like 4.
Yeah.
You have to realize that when the God Emperor made the fucking Primarchs, he basically put his all into making them.
Yeah.
And then a portion of him himself.
Yeah. Vulcan is, and the other thing with Vulcan is he's a perpetual. And not only is he a perpetual, he has been hit with stuff that kills perpetuals and got back up.
He just built different. He is the ultimate body of just built different.
Yeah. Well, now you see why I said, like, a really good actor has to play him, because he's like, he is physically a monster, but in his heart is like the nicest guy in the entire Imperium. I like when if they really do the Horus Heresy, the popularity of the Salamanders is going to fucking skyrocket, and it's already been on an upward trend. People fucking love them, and they're gonna love them even more. But that like the moment, like, when Istvan 5 will be a huge episode. That'll be their red wedding, essentially. And then on top of that, Vulcan and Kurz, like those, God, that's gonna be a hard episode to watch whenever that happens. And then when Vulcan heals from his insanity, that's gonna be a big episode too, because whenever you read, there's a scene in it where Vulcan has come back to his senses. And the first person to see him on, because he was on Macragge at the time, because Gilliman was just letting him heal. It's like, it's my brother. I got to make sure he's okay. The first person to see him was actually Dorn. And there's a moment where he basically tells Dorn, for better or worse, I need a hug. And Dorn is shockingly more than happy to oblige, because he's just glad to see his brother's okay. It's like, it hits really hard. That moment is gonna like make people cry, because it's one of those just ultimate kind of bro moments. But it's one of those things because you're starting to see Dorn as a character start to open up a lot more, because at this point of the heresy, a lot of things are on his back after Isfahan, because the Ultramarines are kind of all over the place. They don't know what's going on with the Emperor. They cannot see his light. And the Imperial Fists have the majority of they have fortified Earth, basically. They have fortified Terra. So it's on his legion, alongside the White Scars and... Who? Was it the Dark Angels? No, it wasn't the Dark Angels on Terra, because it was the Blood Angels. Because after the Imperium Secundus doesn't work out and they see the Emperor again, Sanguinius heads back to Earth. But there's this whole thing where like the Lion and Gilliman have to deal with Curs, and then there's, oh god, the sacking of Prospero. That's gonna be another crazy, like, you see what, like, are you starting to see what I mean by like how fucking huge the scale of this is gonna have to be?
Honestly, it's been animated, not live action.
Yeah,
It's
like,
just gonna be like billions.
Yeah, because like every season is gonna have an episode where it's massive. Like, just the Council of Nicaea and the Burning of Prospero would probably be in the same season. Now, the Council of Nicaea would not be like a big budget thing, because it's just a trial. It's a very good, very well written one, but it's a trial scene, so it's not like the most you're gonna have is just a bunch of dudes in armor in a old Greek kind of style Senate room thing, with some great speeches and stuff like that. But the sacking of Magnus's planet that's a big event. That's a big fight. Because the entirety of the Space Wolves Legion was there on Prospero. All of them. Plus, on top of that, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, there were also members of the Custodes there too, right?
There was a couple, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so that's a bad fucking day for Magnus. And then the fight that they have is like the most hardcore professional wrestling bout ever, to where Magnus finally reveals himself. There's thunder fucking everywhere. The sky is changing. Like, he's like shaking the earth as he steps on it because of his psychic power. And when he finally gets to Lehman, he locks them effectively in a cage of lightning so that they have a fucking cage match, which ends with Lehman putting an axe in Magnus's one eye that he has left, and then breaking his back over his knee like he's fucking Bane. So,
Trina, if you're gonna honk at me, come here.
but as it stands, like, man alive, I don't know how they're gonna do it. Which makes me wonder if they are going to do the heresy, because there's other stuff that they could do in 40K that are just like other stories that you could do, and not really, it wouldn't be as heavy on the budget.
Like a Rogue Trader live action series.
Rogue Trader is one thing. I was also thinking of Eisenhorn.
Ooh, Eisenhorn. That could work.
Because with the character of Gregor Eisenhorn, I could see Henry Cavill playing him.
Have you read the Eisenhower trilogy?
I have not. I
I
want
heard
to.
great things about that.
Yeah, a lot of people say that it's Dan Abnett's best work.
And Abnett is the best author, and that's his best work. I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's awesome. One of my favorite authors out there these days. But yeah, I could see Henry playing Gregor Eisenhorn. Because you could get a lot of like Game of Thrones style intrigue out of the Inquisition easily. Because there's always shit like that going on with them.
They don't have intrigue. It's not the Inquisition.
Basically. But yeah, you could also do Rogue Trader, because with Rogue Trader you can introduce people to all different sorts of characters from different backgrounds. With the thing with the heresy is that it's mostly humanity focused. There's some Xenos stuff in there, but not very much compared to other stories that are out there. Trying to think if there's any others that I would. Admittedly, there is a part of me that would love to see live action Carcharodons. Because I would just love to see everybody's reaction to Tiberos the fucking Red Wake.
That would be too much budget, Micah.
I'd be a very happy man. I love my Shark Boys.
Most shonen marine outside of maybe Dante. Dante and that one guy that what's his fucking name? That was the one of the Fallen that is trying to prove, hey, it's not our fault. They're the real demons.
Oh God, are you talking about the one that was in Son of the Forest?
Maybe. Because there's so many Dantes. Dante, I'll find him out.
Cypher.
Cypher, that's the fucker.
Yeah, I had to look it up.
That dude's basically a fucking anime protagonist.
Pretty much. But the big thing is that like, yeah, with Rogue Trader you could have different factions, because Rogue Traders are known to have people of different backgrounds on their ships on a regular basis. Like the video game.
They're the only ones that are allowed to talk with aliens too.
Yep.
So you'd have reasonable orcs, reasonable enough orcs.
Yeah.
And reasonable fucking Eldar. Well.
Yeah.
Mostly reasonable.
Yeah. Depends on where they're from.
Fucking drooks.
Oh God, fuck them.
You'll have to be craft worlders.
Well, mostly the ones that everyone prefer are the scouts, because those are young enough that they're just like, oh well, I can be an Eldar teenager that is 1,000 years old. It's fine.
Yeah.
Or the Harlequin. Harlequin are mostly reasonable, but they're fucking incomprehensible.
Yes,
I love the Harlequin.
I want to see. One thing that I want to see with the Era Indominus is sort of a tangent. One thing I want to see with it is I want to see the Eldar kind of like manipulating things to their own benefit. Both the what is the group that Yvraine's part of? I'm looking them up right now. The Yanari, yeah. Like the Yanari are trying to manipulate humanity, and try to get them to help out with stuff. You've also got the Harlequins.
Don't come until much later, till after the horror scene.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about like if they did a Rogue Trader thing,
Uh,
because that would be more recent. That would be probably Era Indominus stuff that they would play around with. Um, but you
and,
could you could do stuff like that. Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing something along those lines. The tricky part comes with just like you've got to be smart with it, I think. But if they're willing to invest, like I said, like a Game of Thrones style budget for this series, and with Henry at the head, and they just let him cook, I think that they're gonna have something special on their hands.
Yeah, I hope so. Especially with Henry Cavill at the helm of this whole thing, because he's the first and he's the last guard of this. He made it adamant that it has to be as close to the lore as possible, and you can't fucking skip over certain things. So here's
Yeah,
hoping. I'm actually cautiously hype. I am very cautiously hype.
as am I. The what was the other thing I was thinking of? Fuck. Oh, the one thing that makes me think that they're also going to do something Aaron Dominus is the fact that Titus and the dude who played the guy who recruited him in Secret Level, whose name escapes me at the moment. Um, Trying to find. Um, oh, let's. I do want to talk about the Secret Level thing real quick. Um, it is a suicide mission that they send him on, and it was something that shithead of all people, fucking Leandros recommended. So yes, they hint in it that Leandros is outright trying to kill him.
Fucking Leandros, I swear to God.
But they also cast another guy, um, Adewale Inakoye. He's the guy who played Adabisi in Oz. They cast him as the guy who recruited Titus to the Ultramarines. So they got him and Clive Standen, both dudes that could also play these characters in live action. I think that what makes me think they might be doing something a little bit more like more close to the air or in the era Indominus, because you've got these characters that you could just follow up and just kind of tie everything together.
Hmm. Well, shoot. Yeah, I don't have any further thoughts on this because, like I said, I'm just very cautiously hyped for this because there's so much things they could do. So many things. Oh, good lord!
Yep,
And you seem to have covered most of them. Hell,
pretty much.
even all of them.
I've admittedly been thinking a lot about this because I'm so stoked about where it could possibly go. So we'll just have to see what happens.
mm,
Um, we've kind of gone over our usual runtime. One thing that we'll do real quick before we take off, Serena, if you can, recap what has gone on with to follow up on the Niji Sanji story from last week. What the fuck has gone on over there?
recently, V2, one of their V2s, their latest member of their EN wave, Twisty Amazaku. I don't know her last name. She basically made an announcement that she's going on a indefinite hiatus, which is never a good sign when it comes to Niji. If you guys remember the whole Selen debacle,
It's always
And
a hiatus, and then it's just permanently gone after that.
yeah, so a lot of people, there's a lot of talking in that Twisty might have been the leaker who sent screenshots of Asta Arcadia being a sex pest and harassing and bullying the female members and staffers, and as well as other like people outside of Niji on Discord. And the timing is just way too perfect. Because the fact that she just all of a sudden, without warning, just said, "I'm going on hiatus," has
Very
people like
suspicious.
speculating.
And didn't like the after the allegations against Aster, didn't the announcement they bring out kind of have a weird tinge to it?
Yeah, they low key said that they're going to look for the leaker in their latest, in Niji Sanji's latest like Ian tweet. They said that they'll be like doing their own quote unquote investigation into the allegations and also be trying to find the leaker.
Mm.
Yeah, that's
They
fucked
hung this
up.
poor girl. They hung this
Which
poor girl.
instead, which yeah, because instead of investigating whether this person is actually a fucking creep and removing them, if you found sufficient enough evidence, you're going to target the leaker who is basically trying to expose this person because that makes fucking sense.
Yakuza's, man, I swear to God.
That's what it comes across as because like any sensible company would take allegations of sexual harassment very seriously. And they would go after the person that allegedly did it and try to determine what the hell is going on. Here they're going after the person, the fucking whistleblower. Let's go after the victim, guys. What the fuck? Really? This is what we're doing? They are a
So
black company. They really are.
So cue twisty graduation announcement in 3, 2.
Oh my
I'm
god.
calling it a month from now, maybe 2 months from now. They're gonna
And then
wring one thing out of her. It's probably something to do with the new year, and that'll be it. And then,
that's what
oh,
I'm thinking too. And the other thing that will probably happen is we're gonna get, or they fire her, and we're gonna get the fucking dude with a black screen talking about a bunch of shit that he shouldn't be talking about, and how he's the victim in all this, and it's just gonna happen again. It's like, what the fuck? What are you people doing?
I'm surprised they haven't had another wave.
I
They
expect they will.
had a recent Japanese.
It feels like the people that they have left are just all fucking scumbags.
Not all of them. Like, what's her name? Scar. I really like her and follow, or at least try to follow, is Scarlet and Rosemi.
So you found two.
uh,
There's probably more.
I'm sorry. It's just this company sucks.
They
It's
really
just
do. It's like it's cartoonishly evil. Like honestly, it is cartoonishly evil. Like how the actual fuck can people be like this? I don't know. It
How
boggles
have
the
they not?
mind.
How has this company not been sued until oblivion?
I don't know,
uh,
man.
hmm. I was gonna
Because there's
say,
no
I
way you can survive doing this type of shit for very long.
was gonna say, maybe the court system's a little different over there, but then again, fucking Pal World having to take out their fucking Pokemon throwing aspect because of a fucking patent that was filed after their game was created doesn't make me say any good things about the Japanese court system. I'll be quite frank.
Yeah.
The Japanese system is corrupt. Persona 5 was correct.
Yeah, I never
Well,
played that, but
I'm just gonna say that's one thing we never saw coming.
You never see it come.
Oh my god. Oh. And I thought my jokes were bad. Okay, so we have learned today that Serena needs to watch Event Horizon.
At least once.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
okay.
We might have to make that your thing, your next review.
Cool.
And yeah, we like some Warhammer around here. For those of you who haven't noticed, we are definitely fans of it. So so for those of you out there who have been listening to us this week, thank you so much once again. I don't know if we're gonna be back next week because we're coming up on Christmas.
And everyone's getting
And
ambushed everywhere.
Let's take a break next week since it's going to be like
Yeah.
Christmas week.
Yeah, so next week probably not going to be a show then. So you guys are going to have to just enjoy this one. Maybe listen to us on repeat. Who knows? But just to let you guys know, we appreciate all of you for being a part of everything. One last thing I'm also happy about. I got a whole bunch of Inglewood comics in my office right now that are signed for you guys out there who backed the book. So once again on that one, thank you so much.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, before we take off then, last thing I have to say just to everybody out there, have yourselves a merry little Christmas. And we will see you guys when we return. So for Serena and Mike, this is Micah Curtis, the head of Grindstone Arts. Have yourselves a great rest of your week.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Frick.